All right, man. Well, thanks, Sebi, for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love that you have a platform that like people are so interested in. Like I was telling you, like my mom watches your videos and I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
She'll like send me the reels and stuff and I'm like, yeah, that's Janine. Like, you know, yeah, like I see her once a week almost. It's so funny.
So did she or like actually just see my stuff on her own? I wonder why it even got shown to her.
I don't know. You know, I think it's because, I mean, she does Al-Anon. She's an Al-Anon mom.
Okay.
So I think she already follows like a bunch of podcast people and maybe I followed you or something and the algorithm just kind of, I don't know.
Well, I love that. I love that she saw it. That's awesome.
You know, she loves your stuff.
And I'm super impressed with you. How old are you?
22.
Okay. I'm very impressed that you reached out to me to say, I want to be on the show, because there are people that want to do it. And when I ask them, they're like, oh my God, I've been hoping you would ask. I've been hoping you would ask. But they don't just say it.
Yeah.
And you not only asked, you followed up.
Yeah.
Like 3 times. You're like, hey, so can we get that scheduled?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so fucking proud of this kid.
I was
like at 22 for like putting yourself out there. That's cool.
I absolutely love to hear myself talk first and foremost. But, you know, and I always, having a podcast was always like a cool idea that I had.
Okay.
I was like, one day, you know, I was like, I want to start one. Like, I want to talk, but I was like, I don't know what I want to talk about. Like, I'm scared I'm going to say something that'll get me canceled.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, I'm glad this is not live because like I have been diagnosed with no filter disorder.
Yes.
So I'll be on my best behavior today, of course.
But yeah, it's not live. So if you think tomorrow, oh shit, I should not have said that, let me know.
I doubt it.
Okay, I know. I've never heard you say anything inappropriate. And the other thing I'm going to tell you too is 2 things that you said were one of like the funniest things I've ever heard at HA ever. The first one was we were having a business meeting. Okay, so guys, so if you don't know, a business meeting is 12-step meetings, have a couple of people that make sure it's all like sort of running well. And then once a month we have a business meeting and say like, we need a new secretary. The coffee person is blowing it, which they are, by the way, right now.
I don't even know who it is. I don't know.
Every time I get there's like no creamer.
It's not
anyways,
working,
no. But anyways, that's the kind of stuff we talk about. And at the first business meeting that Skylar and I went to, I remember you put up a motion to allow people to share off topic. Because in our meeting, we ask you that you stay on topic.
Yeah.
And you said, I want other people to be able to share. And that motion got voted down.
It did.
Do you remember what you said?
Oh, yeah. What was it? I was like, oh,
you said, well, if someone relapses and dies because of this, I hope you're okay with
fault,
that. I hope it's, it's your fault.
Well, you know, and the reason I put that motion up is because we have a lot of like the druggy buggy guys come to that meeting. And I feel like, you know, if the topic is something like, you know, the 12th step, I'm like, first of all, these guys don't even know what the 12th step is.
Right.
Second of all, like they're newcomers, so they're not going to be able to share on that topic. And if they don't feel like they're able to share, then they're not going to say anything. You know, they're going to be shy or they're going to feel like, you know, they're being shut down. And I want everybody to have an opportunity, you know, to say their piece in a meeting. But I feel like, you know, if they want to, they will. But it's just something that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
For that exact reason.
And I'm glad you did. But when you said that, I was, Skylar, and it was all this, because you said it in your breath, you were like, all right, well, if somebody relapses and dies because you guys hope it's your fault.
I know.
And then the other thing you said was just a few weeks ago, you know, we have the social coordinator after meetings and they say, are we doing something tonight? And he said, we're going to try to go bowling. And you looked up and you were like, try.
Like, just go fucking bowling.
Let's try. Let's try, guys. Hopefully I'll see you there.
It's so fun. That's such a 12-step like recovery thing too. It's like, you know, we try to coordinate things and like we're not sure if they're ever going to work.
Do you go on Saturday nights after the meeting? Do y'all actually do anything?
Yeah, you know, I've got every once in a while we do go. Sometimes we just, like I said, we don't get our shit together. You know, like we can't figure out what we want to do. But most of the time, like a group of us will figure out something and we'll drive and get something to eat or whatever. You know? It's I work on Saturdays and Sundays too, so it's hard for me to fellowship sometimes. But I really do too. Like HA is my home and like those are my people. So I love to, you know, go out and like just talk after meetings and stuff. It's super fun.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Well, let's talk about how you got to HA. You are from Tennessee, right?
Yeah, East Tennessee. Yeah, born and raised.
I can't believe you're a Vols fan.
I am.
I'm having you on the show anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're a Georgia Bulldog.
I'm a Bulldog, man. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, big rivalry there.
We hate. Well, let's say it on the count of 3. We both hate another school in the SEC. It has to be the same. 1, 2, 3. Florida.
Alabama. Oh, Florida.
No, but I hate Alabama too. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was thinking because we hate Florida too.
We hate Florida too.
Tennessee, it's like our 2 rivals are number 1 Alabama, 2 Florida. So it's like, and especially like in this climate, you know, it's like Georgia and Alabama are like
we're right there. I know exactly. Okay, but I'll accept Alabama as an answer as well.
You know, as long as we hate Florida and Alabama, we're good.
exactly.
We can agree on that.
I had an Alabama guest on the show once, and I did the same thing, and at the same time we said Florida.
That's so
and my
funny.
co-host, who knows nothing about, she went to like UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
She was like, this is some weird Southern shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're right there.
Yeah, we love the football in the South.
We love the football.
Yeah.
So you're from East Tennessee.
Yeah, born and raised in a small town called Johnson City. We're about like you know where Knoxville is?
I dated a guy from Johnson City, Tennessee.
That's so funny.
Is it really small?
It's, we have like maybe 70,000 people, so it's not that small.
All right, okay.
It's like the biggest in the, Tri-City area, but I'm sorry that you had to deal with that,
Listen, he was my boss. He was 23, and I was 17 at a restaurant.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's so funny. Yeah,
Anyways.
checks out.
Okay, so raised in Johnson City.
Yeah, I say small town. It's not that small of a town, but what I always say, like when I tell people, especially in the program about where I'm from, it's like we're right in the middle of like I-26. So like all of the drugs that get trafficked from Texas up north or whatever the area, it goes right through us, and so like we're like a huge drug trafficking area.
Okay.
And there's not much to do there.
Yeah.
You can go hiking, you can go fishing or whatever, or you can get high. And so what we did, we would get high and go hiking and fishing, so like, and that was pretty much all there was to do. So from an early age too, it always surprised me when I was 17 or 18, we'd be like smoking weed or like doing whatever, and like there'd be like a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old just there like getting high with us, and like everyone were like, yeah, that's that's Tristan, like he's 10, we're getting high with him.
So what is your family structure? Who did you grow up with?
So both mom and dad, sister. I have a sister, she's biological, and then I have a brother. He's not biological. He's not an adopted brother, but he was kind of brought into the family. He was an exchange student, and then we call him the exchange student that never left. And and he's my best friend. Absolute best friend. Yeah, I talk to him every single day. And
how old were you when he moved in?
So I was about 12, I want to say, and he's from Venezuela. We do an exchange student program in my high school every year, and kids from Venezuela and Colombia come stay with families for a month. Funny story, actually, he wasn't our student, but he was another family's, and him and my sister dated. And then they fell in love or whatever, and he would come on like vacations with us, blah, blah, blah. They ended up breaking up, but he was my best friend. So like we just kept him, and like we just don't talk about the fact that they dated.
That's
so,
hilarious.
Yeah. So whenever like I have somebody close to me that I'm like, yeah, this is Angel, this is my brother. And then like they find out that like
he dated your sister.
Yeah. They're like, wait, how does that work? And I'm like, we don't worry about it.
So when he was supposed to go back, he just didn't?
So he did.
Was he allowed to stay with you?
So he went back for a time, like he came in the fall or whatever. And then I think that summer or the next winter, like he came when he had spring break or Christmas break, whatever it was. He came and stayed with us for like a couple weeks. Then he'd fly back, and then he'd come back. And when it got time for him to go to college, my dad helped him out going to school. He got a full ride, but my dad helped, pay for a place for him to live and where he went to school at and everything. And so we just like, they're in Venezuela, there's no fucking money.
Right.
And, he grew up with just a mom, and so my dad was like, we loved him. He's part of our family.
Oh,
now,
that's
so
really
it kinda
cool.
just helped him. Yeah, we just, he's my brother essentially,
Yeah.
My dad did what he did for me for him as well,
Okay.
Yeah, except I threw it down the drain, yeah.
So when did you start? What do your parents do?
So my dad is a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist, which is funny because he uses my drug of choice to put people to sleep like every fucking day.
Fentanyl, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, he does. He calls it his special mixture of fentanyl and ketamine, and puts him out like that. And my mom is a nurse, labor and delivery nurse, so both in the medical field. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you start using?
So I started using, I want to say I was 14 years old the first time I smoked weed. I did it out of a water bottle, the classic way. We didn't know how to fucking
Where there was like holes poked in the top?
Yeah, so we got aluminum foil and put it on the, like where the bottle cap goes, and then poke the holes, put the butt in there, and then put a hole cut a hole in the bottom and lit it and smoked it like
so you made like a bong. Okay.
Essentially, yeah. And I feel like, I don't even know if I got high the first time, but it might have just been the aluminum foil,
Yeah.
I did something weird, It's like, and we did that for a while too. I was like, I probably have brain damage from that.
I, from smoking heroin on foil before I started shooting it, I worry about the exact same thing.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know, although good and bad, I started shooting after like, I don't know, a year, but I smoked shit off of aluminum foil.
Oh, yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah, it's insane. And like I read now, like they're like, oh, that you can get like Alzheimer's from that. I'm like, oh my god,
Great.
like it already runs in my family.
Oh
so, no, I'm gonna start forgetting shit at some point.
So is your sister older than you?
Yeah, she is 3 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about you made you want to smoke weed at 14? Was it just like normal kid shit, or did you feel different growing up?
I felt a little bit different. So my sister she's a very private person. Like I was always very like the kid in class, and I always say like when I was in kindergarten, they did like the life skills awards at the end of the year. They gave me the award of sense of humor. So I was always tried to be like I was the class clown. My mom would get emails from teachers like all year about how I was disrupting class. I was a great student, but like I just like to around, and my sister was very reserved, so I always felt a little bit different. They called me, what did my parents call me? The angry comedian, because when I was a kid,
you do seem kind of like an angry comedian.
I was a kid, and so I would like say something, and I wasn't trying to be funny, but it would come off as funny, and they'd all laugh, and I would get mad. It was like I'm trying to be serious, and everyone's just laughing, so they called me the angry comedian.
Well, that day that you said, well, if somebody relapses and dies, it's y'all's fault, I think that was a moment where you were actually not trying to be funny, but it was hilarious.
Exactly. So yeah, that's how I was as a kid. Exactly. And so I always felt like I was a little bit different. She never drank, like nothing. Like I was the only one. But after, I guess, I smoked weed for a little bit and I started doing that, I was like, I remember feeling like this is what I want to do. Another big part of my story that I forgot to mention, when I was 12 or 13, I was diagnosed with severe obsessive compulsive disorder.
That's right. I wanted to talk to you about that. Okay. What is that? And this probably drives you crazy. Mm-hmm. Everyone thinks it means I have to make my bed. Exactly. I'm so OCD.
Yeah.
What is it actually?
So people use the term OCD when they really want to talk about like...
They really mean is perfectionism.
Exactly. And for me, OCD is like my brain races at 1 billion miles an hour. The first symptoms I really had was I'd be going to set the table at home, right, for dinner, and I'd want to put the knife or the fork down in a certain way because I was scared if I didn't put it in a certain way, somebody would cut themselves, right? Or I had to, wipe the, when I turn the sink off, I had to wipe it a certain way because if somebody gets their hand wet and turns on a light switch, they're going to get electrocuted. Like stuff that doesn't make sense, but to me, like it made sense and I can't stop thinking about it. Okay. So I'd have these thoughts, like, and I'd have to tell my mom at the end of every day what I did wrong. I was like, oh, I pet the dog wrong, or like I did this or that. And they're like, sorry. And they didn't notice at first, but then it started getting to the point where like I couldn't eat because I was scared I would choke, and like I couldn't swallow, like it was bad. And so my parents are both in the medical field, luckily, so they knew something was up, and they whipped me up to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, he has OCD. They made me see a therapist, all this, and it kind of, I got medicated, but I feel like when I smoked weed for the first time was the first time that my brain kind of slowed down, so it's already going. That's why I always say, like, I love downers so much more, because, like, I don't want to get more up, like, I'm already like my brain's already insane, so like I want to slow it down. So I think that's one of the reasons why I got into drugs and alcohol, is because it slowed my brain down.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
What medication did they give you for that? What did they give you for OCD?
So first they gave me Prozac. So that was what I was on for a while. And then it stopped working. My brain changed. Your brain changes as you grow. So then they gave me Lexapro and Wellbutrin, which I'm still on to this day. I stopped taking it for a while when I was doing dope because like I lost track of everything, So when I went to rehab, actually, I was like, I've stopped taking this. So they started me at like a low dose again, and then kind of worked me back up to what I was, to my equilibrium.
And don't let me forget, because I wanted to ask you later how you manage your symptoms now, obviously without weed. But so you start smoking weed at 14, it calms your brain down. And then how do things start to progress, and how were you doing in school?
So I always did well in school, in high school, middle school, whatever it was, like my grades were good. I started smoking weed at 14, and for a while that was just my drug of choice. Like I would just smoke weed, like we would can skip school, like get high, do all of this stuff, and I just got in with and these are all still my friends. I don't want to call it the wrong crowd, because I love these people still. Some of them are still in their addiction, whatever. But those were who my friends were, and that's what we did for fun. Like we didn't really have another outlet for having fun where we were from, so that's what we would do. And I remember I experimented with like psychedelics and stuff. I did acid a few times, which I hate.
I hate it too.
God, I can't stand it.
By the end of a trip, I am so upset that I can't get my own mind back in control. It is the most terrifying fucking feeling ever. And I'm like, no. I need to be able to think clearly. And I think it's not going to go away. I hated it too.
Yeah. And it's like, we all have that same thing when we're on acid. It's like, I'm going to be like this forever. You know, it's insane. Like, this isn't going to go away.
Dude. Okay. So I've always had blonde hair my whole life. For some, I don't know. I mean, for a variety of reasons, I dyed my hair black one day. And that happened to be the same day I took acid for the first time. And I went into the bathroom and my hair's black. And I was like, did I dye my hair today?
That's so funny.
Did I ever have blonde hair? And I had this like totally
existential
crisis about blonde hair.
That's so funny.
So did acid a few times. Didn't dig it.
Yeah, didn't. I mean, I liked when I was bored. Like I'd do anything at that point, because at that point, like I was like, I'm just bored. Like there's nothing to do. Like I'm just gonna get whatever I can find. You know. So I start doing psychedelics. Blah blah blah. I did acid at 16. First time I did acid, I drove home. I remember like I snuck out of the house or whatever, went to my friend's house, and on the way, like I had gone back and forth to my house a billion times, but I could not remember how the to get home. So I put it in a GPS and I'm driving, and like all of the GPS, the letters and shit are in like Japanese. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm never going to fucking make it. I somehow made it. And after that, I was like, I'm not going to do that for a while. Yeah. Of course I did it again when I didn't have anything else to do.
Right.
Yeah, I started doing psychedelics. I think the first heavy drug was cocaine. I think I did that junior year of high school, you know, and it was, you know, I didn't do it that often. What I really found my junior year that I loved was MDMA.
Okay.
And so we would get, it was just like rock MDMA. It sounds crazy, but like for that entire year, I did it at least once a week. And like it was insane. And like my junior year, I went to prom and I was on like 4 points of MDMA of Molly, you know, at prom. It was insane.
So would you do it on days you went to school or on the weekend?
Yeah, so both. Yeah, so some like if I was just like, you know, it, we're gonna do me and my friends, we just do Molly.
Would your eyes be like rolling around? It was really obvious.
Yeah, kind of. At that point in my life, everybody had kind of known me as like this stoner kid. Like I had gotten that, like it was like, oh, that's Sebi, he smokes weed. Like they do drugs, they sell drugs, whatever it was. So
have you seen Dazed and Confused?
I have. Yeah.
What's the artist with long dark hair's name? He's making the statue. That's like you.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, exactly. You know, that persona. Yeah, so everybody kind of knew me as that. So nobody kind of like batted an eye. I think my girlfriend at the time, her parents were both drug addicts, which is a big part of my story as well. Like she kind of would always tell me, she was like, I don't like that you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. But like, I didn't care, you know? And at that point, I was over at her house all the time. You know, her mom is a heroin addict as well. She was the woman that actually gave me my first hit of heroin. So yeah, at that point, like I don't think anybody really cared. My parents obviously like knew what was going on because they're not fucking stupid. They were like, just don't smoke weed in the house, don't get arrested. You know, they were working. My dad's an alcoholic as well.
Actively or in recovery?
He's in recovery. Our sobriety dates are like 21 days apart, I want to say.
The same year?
Yeah.
So he was drinking at that time, though?
He was, exactly.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I called my situation a junkie's paradise, because my dad was drinking, my mom was in denial, you know, so nobody really fucking cared. My sister and brother were off at college, so it was just me at home. And they tried their best to kind of steer me away. Great parents, like, you know, they still, you know, obviously had a parental role, but I just didn't listen. Yeah. They sent me to a drug and alcohol counselor when I was 16 for the first time, because they couldn't send me to rehab. I was still in high school. They were like, you can't miss school, blah, blah, blah. But they ended up sending me because my dad hates opiates, right? And he had like a bunch of surgeries for his back or whatever. And so they had like a bunch of pills in this safe. And I ended up finding out the safe code somehow. And I stole the pills. And that was the first time I tried Xanax as well. And so I didn't know how powerful that shit was. And so I took like, 2 milligrams of Xanax, which is insane for a first time.
And you're done.
Yeah. And I remember that night, the only thing I remember was that I made myself a bowl of ice cream. I had school the next day. I made myself a bowl of ice cream and went to sit on the couch to watch a movie. And I woke up in my bed at like, 7 a.m., time to go to school. And my mom's like yelling. She's like, what the happened? Like, there's like glass from the bowl everywhere. She's like, what happened last night? Like, you were stumbling around, like yelling. And I was like, I didn't remember any of it. So I was like, bitch, you're crazy. That didn't happen. I was like, did you fucking dream? And like, I was convinced that none of it happened because I didn't remember. And so I ended up going to school. And I came back home that day and my mom was sitting on the couch. She was like, we need to talk. Like, we searched your room. We found all these pills that you stole, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to go to drug and alcohol counseling.
Okay.
So I ended up going to that.
And that was like a therapist after school once a week or something?
That's exactly what it was. And it was this woman, and like, I didn't care. Like, I would skip the appointments sometimes and get high. Like, I'd get high before and after. And like, she tried her best.
Yeah.
But you know, she was also my dad's therapist, which was weird because she would mention like things that happened between me and my dad in our appointments. I was like, is that even like, are you even allowed to do that?
I don't think you are.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on here? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think you're supposed to.
Yeah. It was weird. Like, she would be like, oh, you got in a fight with your dad. I was like, how do you know about that? She was like, well, he told me. I was like, I don't think you're allowed to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, somebody take her license away, you know, but you know, it's crazy. So obviously the drug and alcohol counseling didn't work. I kept doing what I was doing. At that point, you know, I'm a kid. I had a Tennessee minimum wage $7.25 job.
Where were you working?
I worked at this sandwich place called Which. I worked there for a little bit and I loved it because I could just eat free food and like get high. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
And then I worked at a burrito place and, you know, just made burritos, you know, and everyone was getting high too. They only hired felons and kids under 18. So it was absolutely insane. The business failed, obviously, because the guy had no idea what he was doing. Like the owner, like he jumped into it and hired these fucking like tweakers, you know. Yeah. Nobody cared about their job. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was doing that. And obviously, like, it's not enough money to support a habit. So I started selling weed. And what we would do there is like, you know, sell weed. And every time I sold it to somebody, I'd take like a half gram out of their bag. And that was what I would use to smoke. Okay. And then we would just use the money and keep getting high. I ran every scheme in the book, essentially. I would sell kids like... I still feel bad about it. We would sell younger students acid, but we would just like cut little pieces of paper and color it and put it in like aluminum foil and sell it to them. Exactly. And just say it was acid. Just stuff like that to like just to get money to like just keep, you know, essentially getting high. So at that point, you know, my parents, I had gotten into University of Tennessee. So
UT Knoxville?
Yeah.
Damn, that's a good school.
Yeah, I went there for about 2.5 years. I actually withdrew to go to rehab, and then I never went back. Obviously, I'm here now.
Here you are.
Yeah. Okay. So my parents were kind of off my back because like I always had good grades in school. Like I was still a good student. You know? I was just getting high, so they're kind of off my back because they were kind of proud of me, you know, at this point. So
did you move to Knoxville, or is it close enough that you can commute?
I moved.
You
to
did
Knoxville.
move.
Yeah. So when I turned 18, graduated, I went to it was the year of, it was 2020, so it was COVID. School ended, you know, and I went to school that fall, and just, you know, I moved essentially.
Did they make you guys wear masks to class and stuff? But it was also Tennessee, so were they really doing it? So
the first year, I'm trying to think, I only had, most of the classes were on Zoom, so I moved into a dorm, but I only had one in-person class, and we did have to wear masks, but the rest of it was on Zoom. And so like we would just sit in the dorm room and do whatever. And just, it was the first year was so easy because you could just cheat. Yeah. It was all online. So like
that's so crazy. It's like a lost generation.
Yeah. Well, and I think about the students, like the medical students. Yeah. I'm like, that was like, maybe they should go a couple extra years, you know?
I wonder what they missed. Oh my God. If it happened to be that year. Yeah. So had you already you mentioned your high school girlfriend's mom gave you heroin. Okay. Had you already done that by then?
So what happened there, I got into opiates when I was 16. I had knee surgery. I have a scar on each knee. I had like a growth issue that's where your femurs don't match up with your tibias. So it would cause my knees to like pop out of place every once in a while. It was just painful. Like I couldn't walk right. So I had surgery. You know, obviously they gave me, I think it was like it was Vicodin or hydrocodone, something like that. And my mom would do, like, she's a nurse, so she would try to administer it to me and like write down the times I took it, and I would just like take the whole bottle. Obviously, like I just do it at my own will. And after the prescription ran out, like it wasn't a full detox, but I was like, I felt a little sick, like I was sneezing. And at my girlfriend's mom, I was like, yeah, I feel sick. And she was like, did you stop taking the pills? And I was like, yeah, like they ran out. And she was like, well, you're dope sick. I was like, what is dope sick? Like I had no idea. And she was like, oh, it means like you're withdrawing. So she gave me like a bump of heroin, and that was the first time I had ever done it.
Wait, a bump, a sniff?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So it was powder? It was China White?
Yeah, it was brown. Yeah, it was just brown powder. Which is crazy. I don't know how. It was funny because she abandoned her daughter, moved to another state just because they had more heroin in Texas, you know? Damn. So apparently she had found, you know, the heroin plug or whatever, and she gave me a bump, and like I was like, oh, this is nice, dude.
Okay,
So,
you did like it the first time you did it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And because it took the sickness away, and I was like, I fucking love opiates. Like, that is my drug of choice. And so that was where I was like, this is what I want to do. And my ex-girlfriend, she has no idea that this ever happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she still has no idea.
Well, I hope she doesn't listen to this. Does she follow you on any social media?
I'm blocked on everything. Yeah, that ended poorly. Yeah, so maybe I think her current boyfriend does, but I don't know.
Well, we'll block all block them from chasing heroin. And
no, I don't care. I need to make a ninth step to them anyway.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did you continue doing opiates after that one time you did heroin with her mom, or not really?
Yeah, so I was doing it off and on. Like it wasn't a daily thing. We would do it together, or I would just she would have some laying around, nod it out, and I'd take some or whatever. So it wasn't like an everyday thing. By the time we broke up or whatever, and around that time I moved to Knoxville to go to school. I knew that I liked it, and I had a friend back home that ended up getting the pressed fentanyl pills. We didn't know that they were fentanyl at the time because, we had no idea. So the first time I did that was my freshman year in college, and I remember, because I was scared that they might, be laced or whatever, so I did, a tiny hit, and, I was laid out instantly. So I was just I nodded out, and I woke up, and I was like, that was awesome,
What did you think it was? Oxy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And, I had only ever done small amounts of opiate pills. So I'd only done hydrocodone. So I thought it was maybe Oxy's just that strong. And so, we took the first hit, and I remember I used to be able to make a pressed pill last a long time. And towards the end of my addiction, I was doing 25 a day, and so it was the first time I did that was in my freshman year of college. And I did it. I started doing it once a week. Me and my friends did it, and then eventually it became an everyday thing for a couple of years.
Okay. So was fentanyl, and I'm actually, so I didn't even know this, but I'm glad because I've yet to have someone on the show that was in the fentanyl era, actually. Yeah. So did people know about fentanyl yet? You said you were worried it was laced. Were you worried it was laced with fentanyl because you had heard about it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So fentanyl was already...
So that was out there.
It was out there. We didn't think it was that big of a deal because this was during COVID, the overdose rate spiked.
Yeah.
But we didn't really we're no, our pills aren't laced. It was just kind of denial.
Right.
I knew, but we pretended we didn't know.
Right.
We always acted we're no, it's fine. They're not laced. We're going to be fine. But then, obviously in our hearts, we're yeah, this is fentanyl, dude.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of denial because I was I don't want to be a fentanyl addict, but I was, so I was that junkie denial, I can control it. It all kind of goes together, this is, and it's not doing Oxy every day is any better, but it made anything to make us feel better about our addictions, we'll take.
Right.
Yeah, it was the height of the fentanyl crisis. I had already had friends overdose and survive. I had a friend, he OD'd one night, and his mom, he would always call his mom every single day before class, and one day he didn't call her, and she lived in Johnson City as well, and the day he didn't call her, she just felt something was wrong, so she went up, and he was alone in his apartment, overdosed, and they hit him with 5 Narcan, and he ended up living.
Oh, wow. Still
alive to this day. He doesn't do opiates, he drinks and does blow, but it's whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so he OD'd, a few other people did. I've never overdosed before.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm extremely lucky. I don't, I just dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Essentially. I don't know how.
Dude, Skylar has never even overdosed. Yeah. And I'm like, what?
It's just fucking luck. Dude.
Yeah, it's just
Russian
luck
roulette.
of the draw, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did fentanyl every day for 2 years, dude, and I don't know how I didn't die or overdose. That's why I believe God is real.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I believe he's real. But yeah, I was doing, every single day. I kept my grades up in college somehow. I, withdrew from UT with the 3.8 GPA to come here. So it was I don't know how I managed that. I think it's just because it made schoolwork a little more bearable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's always that amazing period in the beginning where it gives you more energy and you get better at things.
Exactly.
Right? In the very beginning.
Yeah. And I always say it did what I wanted it to do. So when I would wake up in the morning, it would give me energy. When I would be during the day, it would give me it would just get me high. During night, it would help me go to sleep.
Totally.
So it kind of became this drug where I was I can do whatever I want with this. It helps me with everything. And then eventually it takes everything away from you, obviously. But for a while I was dude, it's the limitless drug with Bradley Cooper.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay. I watched that movie when I was So I got on methadone once and I didn't really know like that much about it. And it was day 2 and I hadn't gone to the clinic and I thought, I don't know what I fucking thought. I think I thought I could just get well on heroin. Yeah. And I was watching Limitless as I started to get super sick from methadone. Yeah. And it was so like heroin. That movie it makes me wonder if the writer was an opiate addict.
Oh, I think so too.
The way that they get sick, the symptoms on TV are like opiate addict symptoms. I'm like, this has to be like an opiate addict wrote this.
Yeah.
So how were you getting money to buy pills?
Yeah. So for a while so at that point, you know, my freshman year of college, my parents would give me like money to get groceries or whatever. And I would eventually like, you know, cause I wasn't doing that much. It was fentanyl. So it's powerful. And like, I didn't have a tolerance to it yet. So I was able to manage with money. The school would give you dining dollars. So I would eat at the cafeteria or whatever. And like, I kind of always had a little bit of money. Eventually I moved into an apartment after my freshman year and I would sell drugs on the side. Like I was selling cocaine to the frat boys because they loved coke and I lived like right where all the frat houses were. So I would like do that on the side. Eventually I was getting so loaded that like I was too lazy to even like really go and sell drugs. So what I did, my parents, they were paying my rent and they would give me like a certain budget for groceries and I was using that all on drugs essentially. Like I was just using all of it to buy fentanyl. And eventually that wasn't enough, you know, when my tolerance was up and I was getting like spending, I think my spending habit for drugs was like, it got up to like $400 a day. It was insane.
Damn.
And so I had this savings account that my parents had started for me when I was young and I somehow got access to it, and I blew through all of that.
How much was in there?
It was like $8,000, you know, and I went through that in like 4 to 5 months. Damn. It was insane. Yeah. And they started noticing and obviously. And so like at that point, my dad was still in his addiction. Like I said, mom was like still in denial. So nobody really said anything. Eventually I started stealing from my parents. So I would drive
stuff to sell.
I would drive an hour and a half from Knoxville to Johnson City and I would go to their house and like say like, I was like, oh, I'm just going to visit you for like a couple hours and go back. And I knew that we all had the same 4-digit ATM pin. We had the same password for everything. So I would steal their debit cards and like withdraw money, go get high. And then like, you know, when that ran out, I would do it again. And like, I was always like in the back of my mind, I remember like, I was like, eventually I'm going to get caught. Yeah. And like, I would worry about it. And then I'd get high and I'd be like, all right, everything's okay. Like it would just take the worry away. And that was just the cycle I do. And so I don't know how much I stole from them in total, but on the days, like I had a credit card for my parents for emergencies. And so I would run this scheme where I would go to Walmart and buy like a Visa gift card or whatever, and you can use those you can't use a credit card at the money station at the money center at Walmart, but you can use those gift cards. So I would buy a cashier's check and I would get them to write it in my name, and then I'd go to another Walmart and cash it. Okay. Which I'm banned from the Walmart money center now. It was funny when I got a job out here, I didn't have a bank account in California, so I went to cash my check at Walmart and they're like, yeah, you're like flagged, dude. I was like, what? And so I was like, it's crazy. So eventually I guess they caught on that I was doing this, which I'm not sure if it's illegal to do it, but Walmart, I guess they frown upon it. Might be illegal. I don't know.
I don't think it's illegal because you're writing a cashier's check in your own name. Exactly. I think it would be illegal if it were in someone else's name. Yeah. But like you said, frowned upon. Exactly. I'm sure. Yeah. As a general practice.
So eventually they banned me from the money center. So I ran all kinds of schemes. I would ask like friends, I would sell them gift cards as well. So I'd use the credit card to buy gift cards and I'd be like, hey, if you give me like the cash for this, I'll give you this. Like you can use it for anything, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just kind of like I just had, you know, junkies, we have schemes.
Hustles, so, yeah. Exactly. Those are good ideas though.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Did you ever buy something, an item, and then return it for a gift card for credit? Okay,
I do that
there's
too.
one.
Yeah, exactly. I would sell stuff that I owned. Like the only things that I didn't really sell were the things that like I needed for school or like they were like prized possessions. So like I had a signed autograph from my favorite soccer player, Messi, and like I was like, I can't sell that. Like,
and you never did?
I never did.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, no, there were a few items where I was like, I'm not gonna sell that because like I was like, it's just like at that point I was like, I would feel so bad about myself that like it wasn't even worth it.
You know what though? At some point it progresses and you do sell those things. Exactly. I've watched Skylar do that. I mean, he has sold prized possessions of his families. Yeah. And it kills him. Yeah, you know, and it just progresses to get to that point.
And that's why I'm glad like got thrown into recovery at such a young age before it could really progress into that, to where like I've never used needles before either. Wow. So like before, like
I didn't know you were so young.
Yeah.
I thought you were, in your 20s.
Yeah.
But this is great because I've actually had a bunch of people request a guest that got clean super young.
Yeah.
And you did. And I actually haven't had that yet.
Yeah. My sobriety date was, it's funny, I never had. Actually, I had one legal 21-year-old drink, like alcohol, and it was the day, coincidentally, it was, I had a fake ID, so I would drink, like go to bars as a student, but I never had a legal drink.
Okay.
The one that I did have was coincidentally the night before I went to rehab. We didn't know I was going to rehab that night, but we went out to eat, and I split a margarita with my mom. Yeah, that was my my first 21-year-old drink and my last drink.
And you went to rehab the next day?
Yeah, what ended up happening was that night we drove home, like I was still getting high, and this was during winter break for school. So we drove home, and like I went, and they found out that night that I had been stealing from them. So what ended up happening was, this is a big part of my recovery as well. My dad, his sobriety day, I want to say it's like January 9th or something, he got a DUI and, crashed his car, got a DUI. And after that, he turned himself into the medical board of Tennessee because he was like, if they find out, like I'm. So he told them, he was like, yeah, this is what happened. And they're like, all right, we want you to go to a 90-day program. So he went to they had to go get medical tests or something. And then he was going to come back for a couple days and then go to rehab. Went and got the medical tests, came back, and he had been sober for the first time in like a while. So he starts noticing shit, and they realize, they're like, oh shit, like there's a bunch of money missing. They put two and two together. So I get home that night. I had just gotten loaded, and they're like, we need you to come talk with us. And eventually that's where it happened. They're like, what's going on? They're like, do you want help? And at that point I was like I was high. And so I was like, I guess I'll say yes. But I was like, what are the other options? Like they're going to not talk to me. They're going to cut me off. Like I was like, I guess this is the end. It's like that moment that we all talk about where everything just comes crashing down.
And that was that over. For you? You really felt in that moment? Okay, well, let me ask you this. Couple of things. In the days leading up to that moment, did you start to feel, because there's that like hopeless desperation that we feel when we are selling things, when we are doing Walmart fucking hustles. Yeah. I got to a place where I was just like terrified every day of being dope sick.
Yeah.
I was terrified to live another day as an addict, but I was terrified to be clean. Did you feel all that stuff internally?
Yeah. So I remember there were times where I had tried to get clean, which clean for me before was just not doing opiates. And so I'd still do cocaine and stuff. And I'd go through the withdrawal and everything.
You would? You'd kick on your own?
Yeah. So what I did to kick was just, I would megadose vitamin C and I'd just fucking do other drugs. I'd smoke weed or whatever. And just try to do Xanax or just try to kick, and I'd end up just fucking doing fentanyl again. And so that's when I was like, all right, there's something up.
What does a fentanyl kick fucking look like? Because heroin was awful, but every kid I meet that has kicked fentanyl is like, Janine, you don't even know. And I'm like, fucking, I'm so glad I don't. What does that look like?
So for me, the last time I kicked, which is when I went to rehab, it was the sickest I've ever been in my entire life. I remember the first night, it wasn't that bad. And then I didn't sleep that first night. And you get the cold sweats. You're not hot. You're not cold. You don't know what the you are. You can't the restless leg. You just have to move. And I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't drinking anything. My blood pressure was extremely low. It was like a demon was being released from me. And I asked the nurse techs, I was like, just kill me, dude. Just kill. I was so sick. I remember I tried to take a shower to regulate my body temperature, and I walked out with a towel on in the detox and passed out naked in front of everybody. Hit my head and then woke up and just went dove into a bed and was still just kicking. It was nothing else no, I didn't care how I looked. I was just sick, dude.
Could they give you anything Ambien or?
They would give me Robaxin for restless leg, which didn't help. Eventually they had to wait, you have to wait time to take Suboxone, obviously.
So with fentanyl though, okay, so for us, it's supposed to be 24 hours, and I learned the hard way through lots of experiments.
Yep.
I could take it at 19 hours was the magic hour for me. But for fentanyl, don't you have to wait 3 days?
Yeah, 36 hours is what they say. For me, that was too soon as well. So they gave me Suboxone, and I was like, oh, finally I might feel better. later, and like 10 minutes later, I was
so much worse.
Yeah.
What did they do for you when it was too soon?
Nothing. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, we'll just give you another dose in like a few hours," and so they did, and eventually, like it started. Like eventually, after the precipitated withdrawal and everything, it started helping the next day. I want to say, but like I kicked for like 4 days, and then the Suboxone finally started helping, and then so like 4 or 5 days I was just in like immense pain and just sick, and then eventually I did feel better, and it was they gave me like 16 milligrams in the morning and at night, I think, and then eventually exactly, just whatever. I was like, give me more if you need to. It was like whatever you want, but and it was like detoxing was horrible, but then once I finally felt better, I was like, all right, let's do this.
Wow. And that's your sobriety date?
January 30th of 2023. So
you just had a year.
Yeah, I have a year and 2 months and 11 days, I want to say, something like that. Yeah. So that night that they gave, we had an intervention, essentially. That was the next morning. I remember my dad was like, all right, well, I'll come up to your room and I'm going to take the rest of your drugs and see if you can last the night. And I remember as I was giving him some of the dope, I was holding it in another section of my hand. And so I kept some. I don't know how I fucking pulled that off, but I'm a junkie. And so because I was I was it was insane. Yeah. And I had another section. It was wild. I don't know how I did it, but I was like, I'm not going to kick tonight. I'm going to get high one last night. So
I would too.
Yeah. And so I was getting loaded. And that morning before we left, I got loaded one last time.
Wow.
That was January 29th. The next day is my sobriety day where I didn't do any drugs at all. So January 30th. Yeah.
So what did it look like for your dad when your dad was drinking?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's an anesthesiologist, and they obviously, because the theme for me and all of this is obviously your family was so important to you. A lot of kids have been in your position.
Yeah.
They get to that point and they're like, you don't give a what you think.
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah.
So obviously you had a good relationship with them. So was he a fall down drunk alcoholic, or was it just kind of in the background, or?
Sorry, I'm doing a nicotine pouch.
That's fine.
I don't want to vape in your studio.
No, you could vape in here. It's fine. Nate used to totally vape. Although one time Nate had, I don't know what the he was vaping, but I had this door shut.
Yeah.
And that window wasn't open. And by the end, I was
that's so funny.
Shaking. What would have been just high nicotine?
Yeah.
I was eyes rolling in my head by the end. And I told him he could vape. And then afterwards I was I don't know what the you were vaping, but we can't do that anymore.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So for my dad, I remember when I was newborn to 12, 13 years old, alcohol wasn't really a problem. It runs in his family. He's Puerto Rican, born and raised in Puerto Rico. Everyone drinks there. His dad's an alcoholic, grandpa, everybody's alcoholic. And for him, it was fine for a while. I don't, but one day, when he hit his mid 50s, all of a sudden, it was just hit him differently. And so I remember one day my parents were fighting and I figured out it was about alcohol, and my mom was like, yeah, your dad has a drinking problem. And then that was around 14, and after that he just wasn't the dad that I remember. He would try to get sober, never tried AA, he would try to quit, he couldn't. He would just drink, and when he would get drunk he would get really annoying. He wasn't he wouldn't beat us or anything.
Right.
He wasn't abused. He's a great person, other than the drinking. So, he was just he would get really annoying and repeat stuff, and we were all oh my God, f off, dude, just go to bed.
The repeating is so annoying. Or if you're watching a movie and they just keep repeating something over and over, or they don't get what's happening on the TV. I'm shut the fuck up.
It's so annoying. It would drive me crazy. And that drive me to get high too. Cause I remember I would have nightmares. I'm an Al-Anon baby as well. So I remember before I really thought that I had a drug problem, I would just have nightmares about his drinking. It would when I would do the thing where, I would go around the house and find all his bottles. I would pour them down the sink. I tried the control thing, just whatever it was. I would, and I felt me and my mom felt we were going crazy.
Yeah.
Because we're this, it bothers us so much. My mom ended up finding Al-Anon. I started getting high. So I guess we both had
You found a solution.
Ways. Yeah, exactly. We had our own ways to cope.
And people don't understand. At some point I'm going to do an episode. So Skylar is almost 9 months now.
Hell
He's doing fucking great. But people don't understand the level of insanity that you start to feel with the gaslighting.
Yep.
Is almost worse than my own addiction, I think, because I was high during my addiction, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
During his addiction, I wasn't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I was like, you're having fun right now. I'm not. I mean, and he wasn't either. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know.
Dude, I remember this one night. I haven't even shared the story. So he was abusing Ritalin.
Mm-hmm.
But he also is like supposed to take Ritalin.
Yeah.
He's not now, obviously, but he wanted to continue to try to keep taking it, even though he's abusing it. The deal was he would give it to me after he got it from the doctor. And I couldn't make it to the pharmacy once. And I was like, okay, can you just go pick it up on your own and just bring it right to me? So he brings it right to me. And later that night, I'm looking at it and every pill had like a heart on it. It was aspirin and he had swapped it out and I'm like having a panic attack. Like this isn't Ritalin. And he's like, sometimes it looks like that. And I'm Googling Ritalin and I'm Googling aspirin. And he's like, if you can't handle this, then you can't take care of Tank during the day. And I was like, what? Like just insane gaslighting.
Sense,
Anyways, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. It's really hard. How were you managing your OCD during college, or was it not prevalent when you were on fentanyl?
It wasn't prevalent. You know, I think, opiates, they give you so much, fucking dopamine, whatever it is, like it just like, and that's essentially what an SSRI is. It's like barely uptaking your serotonin. And so like, that's what opiates were just, I was having a lot, like 10 times more than an SSRI could do. But yeah, so it was managing it. Like and to this day, I'm medicated, and I don't really have any OCD symptoms. Like
you don't?
All. Yeah, thank God. I mean, every once in a while I'll have one like where I'm driving and I'll be like my brain's like, oh, you want to crash into that guy? And I'm like, no, I don't. And then I start like overcorrecting. And that's rare. So I'm like, don't take my license away. Like everything's fine. But, so I don't really have any symptoms. But yeah, at the time, like opiates were really, it was controlling the OCD and everything else,
Yeah. So you're in detox. How long was the Suboxone taper? You did a taper, I guess?
Yeah. So I was on it for about, was in rehab for like 35 days. I was on it the entire time. And then when I flew out here to go to my IOP program in San Diego, they were like, yeah, you can't be on Suboxone. So I was on the plane with like a full sheet of Suboxone, and then when I had to detox from Suboxone, so I went to a detox in Dana Point first. They threw all my Suboxone away, which I was like, it's fine. You know? That was actually my first real sobriety test, was because I was on the plane. I was like, dude, I can take all the Suboxone now.
And you didn't?
I didn't. Yeah, I was like, my first thing I was like, I don't want to restart my sobriety date again.
Yeah,
so
totally.
And so like I didn't do it, and then I kicked Suboxone for like in 2-3 weeks.
Sucks.
I didn't know it was going to be that bad.
Yeah, I didn't either. The first time I got on it, I had no idea.
And it was only like a fraction of fentanyl withdrawal, but I couldn't sleep, and like I was like shivering all the time, and like so I was going to like my IOP groups, and like for the first 2 weeks I just felt really sick. So they kept me in what they call like phase 1 for like a month, because like I was like, I was sick. And then eventually the Suboxone, like I wasn't kicking Suboxone anymore, and like I think I stopped. Yeah, I was about after a month that they tapered me down.
Okay. Did you go to SCRC? Is that how you're here?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's a funny story.
Everyone goes to SCRC.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's a great program.
The rehab I went to in Tennessee wasn't that great. It was all right, but like it was really disorganized. SCRC, I have nothing but good things to say.
Me too.
They are incredible people over there. The guy that owns it, Danny, he's very hands-on too. He's just great.
Totally.
Great. It's the best choice that I've ever made in my life, for sure.
Was Rachel one of your counselors?
She was, yeah.
Shit. Rachel, my sponsor, y'all, works at SCRC.
She does, yeah. She was the best. And
she's a good counselor, huh?
I helped lead one of her groups like a month ago. I want to say she brought me in, like I told my story or whatever to the guys. Yeah, no, she was incredible. Love Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everybody there is incredible.
Everybody there is pretty incredible. I know. Yeah. So when you were in the rehab in Tennessee, did they start bringing you to 12-step meetings?
So I went to, like I said, it was really disorganized. So all the transportation people were quitting for some reason. They weren't getting paid enough. So I went to like 1 or 2 NA meetings. All they have really in Tennessee is NA or AA. And so I went to a couple NA meetings, and I didn't really get it at that point and first of all, like the meetings in Tennessee are really ghetto, dude. Like everyone has their kid, so like there's like 7 babies just running around. Like there's somebody, like there was a guy like OD'd and like outside the door, like what the is going on here? Like it was insane. I was like, this is what I don't want to do 12 steps. It's fucking crazy. And so they brought us to meetings. I took my 30-day at one of those meetings, and
because SCRC makes you get a sponsor and start working steps. They do all the things, right?
Yeah, they make it. When you're in phase 1 and you're in the druggy buggy or the Ativan, whatever you want to call it, dope fiend limousine.
The dope fiend limousine. I've never heard that.
It's a good one.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
And y'all, we mean the bus that takes you from the program to a meeting.
Yes,
you all ride in a white shuttle together, and it's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
The dope fiend limousine.
Yeah, it's so
I like
funny.
that.
Yeah, so they would take it in when I was in phase 1, they call it, they would take us to meetings every single day. And then that's when, when you get to phase 2, when you move to a different house, you're on your own, essentially you get a job and whatnot. That's when I started, like, you have to make 5 meetings a week. They don't, at SCRC, you don't do meeting slips because it's just kind of like, they just have to trust you, I guess.
Okay.
Which for some people it works, some people it doesn't. For me at that point, I was like I fell in love with the program.
Yeah.
When I was going to meetings, I was like, I love HA. Actually, when my first month, I want to say that I lived here, you led a CA meeting, the big one.
The Friday night.
Exactly. Yeah. So you led that meeting, and I was like hearing your story, I was like, oh my God.
Really?
Yeah, it moved me to tears, dude. I actually remember after, how like you stand up and you can greet, like you're like, oh, go meet our speaker. So I went to meet you and I was like, hey, I'm Sebi. And you're like, oh, Sammy, nice to meet you. And I was like, she almost got it. I was like, it was so, you were so distracted, but I didn't take it personal, obviously. But yeah, I heard your story and I was like, wow. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was moments like that and like hearing other people that I was like, I can do this, dude. And I ended up like meeting good people in the program, all of that stuff. And I just fell in love with it. So
what brought you to HA?
Let's see.
Or did SCRC bring you?
They brought me there the first time I went to that Saturday night, and that's where I met my first sponsor. And I was like, well, I'm a heroin addict. I'm an opiate addict. I was like, so these are my people. I liked that you were able to talk about, like, it wasn't like AA where some of the meetings restricted you from what you could say. And so I really just liked it. I ended up meeting my boss / coworker, Kevin. Kevin there.
Wait, you work for Kevin?
I do. I work. See, he's like my boss. He's actually my coworker because like he kind of tells me what to do sometimes, but I work with Kevin is what I will never let
I'm
him have that
interviewing
power.
him in 2 weeks, actually.
Are you? Nice. Yeah.
What do y'all do?
So it's a real estate company / vacation rental. So we're in Solana Beach and we manage over like 90 properties and we just kind of like manage these rentals. We have guests, like we do real estate. It's kind of like it's a real estate company.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I help.
I think I thought he was a real estate agent. Is he?
Does that. He
does. Okay.
So he does both. He's a property manager and an agent.
Okay.
I'm just a property manager. So I help out on the vacation rental side. I'm in the process. I just have to take one more test to get my real estate license.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to process the paperwork so I can do that. I want to have that to fall back on. I'm going back to school as well in the fall. So like I'm kind of, working to help continue on in that company. But yeah, so that's HA is where I met him and just like a bunch of good people. My current sponsor now, Drew, is in HA as well. So that's kind of where.
Oh, Drew.
Yeah.
Short black hair, Drew?
Yeah.
Okay, or long hair, actually, I guess, kind of.
Yeah,
Drew.
long hair. Exactly,
I didn't know he's your sponsor.
Yeah, he's my sponsor. And yeah, that's, it's where I met all of the people, like my family here, essentially.
Yeah,
so
totally.
HA, the meeting, actually, I'm going to tonight. I'm the treasurer, which we need more money, but
the Wednesday in Oceanside.
Club, yeah.
Dude, when I went to HA, so I'd gone to NA too, and they always say you love me until I could love myself. I didn't feel that way at NA.
Yeah,
it wasn't bad, but I didn't feel like that.
It's weird,
but I did feel that way at HA. It was so fucking weird. That's how Skylar feels to you.
Yeah,
not everyone agrees with us. Like I'll meet people and they're not, and so there is. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah,
but it is absolutely the fellowship that has worked for me.
It is, and I feel like it's because we use the 12 steps and we go through the big book. In NA, it's kind of a little bit different.
It's their own book.
Yeah, I've never gone to an NA meeting out here, actually.
They're good out here.
Are they?
Yeah, I will say that. They're very good.
And I got I go to so many HA meetings and whatever that I'm like, this is my home group. So like at some point I'll try NA if one day, Yeah, no, HA, we go through the big book and I think, like you said, the fellowship is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I hear people, like I guess my ex-girlfriend, whatever from out here, she's an alcoholic, she never used opiates or anything. And she didn't like going to HA meetings because she felt she wasn't included. But I was like, listen, like we say at the beginning, like we include, tweakers, alcoholics, whatever. But like
everyone,
some people just get like, they don't have the right idea of what it is.
Right. Totally. Well, like Bree, who ran it forever, never did heroin ever in her life. I don't think Kevin has ever done heroin, right?
He has. We actually make fun of him for it because he's like in his lead. Sometimes he'll talk about shooting heroin, but he never actually shot heroin.
Right.
So
wait, but he did do heroin?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did he just snort it or something? I actually don't even know his story. I've never even heard him lead.
I really don't either. I see the man every single day at work, and we don't know that much about each other's stories.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know yours either. I was telling Skylar last night, I was like, have you ever seen Sebi lead?
I've led.
And Skylar was like, I don't think I have.
What was it? I led the Thursday night at the 6 step. I have like here and there, but I haven't led the HA Saturday yet, which I want to.
You should, yeah. Amy should totally ask you.
Yeah, that's what, at some point I want a secretary there the next term too. I'm trying to like rally everybody up.
I'll vote for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so I've done a few leads here and there, but this is like, that's why I like you have this podcast, because like I love meetings, hearing people's story, but also the recovery of it. I like how here you really get into like the depths of people's stories, the details, what brought them here. It's totally. It's really what, like, we go to meetings to get recovery, but at the end of the day, some of us really just want to hear like what the fuck you did out there.
Absolutely. I'm always interested. On the first date I went on with Skylar, he told me later, like, no one's ever asked him any of this shit before, because we were talking about stuff and he lived with somebody before me. She was in med school. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute, she was in med school, but she wasn't hip to your shit. How were you getting money? Like, I was asking him all these questions because I do want the details.
Of course.
So have you worked all 12 steps?
I have one time, and then so I'm not sponsoring right now because I'm going through them with Drew at the moment. Yeah, I'm on my 4th step right now. Okay. So yeah, I'm going through my 2nd set of steps, and then that's when I'm going to start sponsoring. And we're doing, the Big Book Awakening.
Yeah, BBA,
yeah. So it's like a fucking, class.
It's a whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
but I love it.
Oh, it's great.
Really learn a lot about it.
Yeah, and what I love so much about it right now too is that now that I have over a year sober, it's kind of, in this 4th step especially, I'm, really getting into the mistakes I've made in sobriety. Okay. Things like my resentments that I've gained in sobriety, which I'm a resentful motherfucker. Like, there's quite a few people that have been added, Yeah. And so I'm really starting to understand, because I went through this like headspace recently where I just felt like a dick because I dated a girl, we met when we were like 30 days sober. Great idea, obviously, I don't know.
She was at like 30 days too?
Yeah, we were both. She has a little bit less time than me. She would always be like, oh, you 13th step me. I was like, I had like 40 days. Like, let's calm down. I didn't even know that was what 13th stepping was.
Right.
And so that relationship didn't work out. And so like I'm kind of going through that period right now, and like so doing the steps like for a second time is really helping me process all of that. Okay. So I'm grateful to have Drew, because my first sponsor didn't work out well. He ended up moving to North Carolina, and then like me and Drew are like, it's great. I'm having a very good time with the steps right now, for sure. Okay.
What was your favorite, since you've gone through all 12? Occasionally I ask this. Yeah. Do you have a favorite step, and why?
Favorite step,
or like that you learned the most from when you look back on it?
I think for me, the 10th step is my favorite, and I say that because we have a step for f***ing up. When you f*** up in sobriety, there's a step for that, and that's continuing to take daily inventories. Like they say, like when we rest at night or whatever, we go through our intentions of the day. Yeah. Like that's what continuing to do inventory is. And like I said, like I was in this weird headspace where I just felt like an asshole because I've made some mistakes in sobriety. I've done some things that I'm not proud of, especially in that relationship. So being able to take inventory and realizing like, why I made this mistake, and then like not letting it, have that much power over me, but at the same time learning from it. That's why I love the 10th step so much.
Do I know her? Is it somebody I know?
Maybe.
You don't have to say her name. You can tell me off air.
I won't say her name, but does
she go to our Saturday meeting?
No, she only does really AA meetings. Okay, then I probably won't know her.
I only go to that meeting.
No, we met at the Tuesday night beginners meeting in Oceanside, which I'm now banned from, which is long story, but
You're officially banned?
I am.
Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I don't care, so I'll tell the story. It's actually pretty funny. A bunch of people have asked me about it.
I didn't even know you could get banned from a meeting. Although Narcan Nate is banned from a meeting. That's because he punched somebody.
It was that meeting, I think.
Oh, really?
I think. Well, we talked about it. I saw him like a couple weeks ago, and Kevin was like, Nate, like he got. He's banned from that meeting too. And Nate was like, it was because of the same guy.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah. So what happened was, there's this guy that goes there. I won't name his name. Obviously, he's old. I don't even think he can't watch podcasts. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But me and my girlfriend broke up, and like we got into fights. Like I did some fucking shitty shit. She did some shitty shit. Whatever. That's the meeting we met at, and that's her like home group. So I remember like we were going and it was fine. Like she would be there and like it wasn't that big of a deal. But one day, this was like a month ago, I went there, and this guy that like thinks he runs the meeting or whatever, he's the guy that makes the cakes. Like, he's been going there for like 100 years. He's standing at the entrance and he's like looking at me, and I was like, hey, and he was like, hey, we had a meeting. Like, you're not allowed to be here anymore. And I was like, well, first of all, I was here last week. I'm here 30 minutes early. When did you have time to have this meeting? You know, I was like, this doesn't seem right. And so he's like, no, we had this meeting, and he's like, you're not allowed in. I'm like, well, what's stopping me from walking in? And he was like, oh, I'll stop you. And then I was like, oh, you'll stop. I was like, I just fucking lost it, dude. It's like, put your hands on me, dude, blah, 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 blah. In the meantime, like, you know, we're going back and forth, and I see some girl like writing something, and she brings it up to him, and she's like, look, this is where it says you're banned. I was like, I just saw her write it. So I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I watched that happen, dude.
Oh my gosh.
So like, it's a whole thing, and like some guys that I know are like, it's okay, Sebi, leave. And he in front of me, he calls the cops, and he's like, hey, this guy assaulted me, which I never touched him, you know, and he says it, and I was like, what the hell? And so I call Kevin, and I'm like, Kevin, I was like, he said that I assaulted him, he called the cops, what do I do? And Kevin was like, well, do you want to go to jail? Because they'll take you anyway. And I was like, no. And so I left, and I haven't gone back since, but it was like a whole thing, you know. It wasn't my best moment, obviously, you know, like I still up, but that meeting, they banned me from it essentially, and you know, so like I can't go back. That same night though, I went to the store, I went to the Food for Less, and I saw that guy there. It was so funny, the same night, and I
Food for Less in Vista.
Yeah. And so it's right down the street from my house, you know. And so I was in the aisle, and I like look over, and he looks right at me, and he dashes out the door, dude. He just runs.
I can't believe you saw him the same night. That's so actually weird. Like a really weird coincidence.
It was a weird coincidence.
Because it's not near where the beginners is.
Yeah, it's like a 15-minute drive.
Yeah, that's far.
There. Yeah, it was really weird.
I also can't believe it was the same guy that Narcan Nate got in a fight with.
Yeah, I think Nate was telling me that like they said something about him
distributing Narcan.
Narcan, exactly. And so like he was like, he got, you know, pissed about it too. So I was like, I'm glad me and Nate could relate on that. I was like, see, Kevin, like I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, obviously this guy is, you know, obstinate. But I will give you this. Nate took that moment and decided to turn it against all of 12-step and step back completely, which is really annoying, which you have not done.
Yeah.
Because I try to say on this show all the time, I'm like, anytime you get a large group of people together, some of them are going to be assholes.
Exactly. It's what we do. You know,
right.
I'm an asshole too.
I really can be too.
And
okay.
I'm working.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean the program isn't valid. But Nate knows that. He just didn't want to keep going.
Exactly. You know, it happens. And like, it was an AA meeting too. And I was like, well, I still like HA, like I still love it. So I'm still going to, you know, I'm not going to let it turn me around on this program. You know, it saved my life. So like you know, all that guy, the cake guy is on my new fourth step now.
Right.
Eventually I'm going to have to make amends to him further down the line, but it's like, you know, shit happens.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
Yeah. So what do you want to go back to school for?
Yeah, so my degree at University of Tennessee was geography. It was cultural geography, you know. I love soccer, I love learning about the world, all that stuff. It kind of tied together. And I was going to be a teacher. And now I'm like, you know, with the job that I have now, I'm acquiring my real estate license. I was like, I think it's a smart idea for me to get a marketing degree. I feel like, you know, financially it would help me out. And eventually, you know, I could go back and like do what I really love. But for now, like something that will put food on the table and give me a comfortable life in the moment is like what I want to do. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it'll help out what I'm doing currently. So.
What is cultural geography? Like learning about other cultures?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a dumb question.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's literally, it's so like where people came from, you know, migration patterns, you know, where everything.
So like sociology kind of.
It's like sociology, but more about like, you know, countries now. So learning about like how modern day borders started, you know, where people are from. And it's super fun. Like I could go on for hours talking about like different, you know, my focus was like the Middle East. So like, you know, just talking about like where people are from, what they're doing, all like, you know, their heritage, that stuff. Like I could like, you know, listen to lectures on it for hours.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it stemmed from, you know, I'm a huge soccer fan. Like what we were talking about, I have my team's jersey on right now, and they won
today.
They did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, got
we rescheduled.
Yep.
But also, I rescheduled this morning. So I originally told Sebi I wanted to meet before his game, and then last night I was like, I'm not going to have that studio ready. I don't think either of us are going to have
our shit together. Yeah, no.
Like, why did I tell him 9?
I was like, well,
so last night I was like, can we just do it after the game?
Well, it was funny. I told my mom, I was like, yeah, I was gonna go on. Me and Janine had to like reschedule because I had to watch the game, and my mom was like, she's probably rolling her eyes as we speak. And I was like,
no, I thought it was so cute. Funny. Yeah. I thought it was funny. Actually,
I was like, listen, I was like, it was a huge game, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think watching soccer and everything, like, because all of the like my team's from Spain, you know, my family's from Spain. I think watching teams play from around the world, knowing the players and their like cultures and stuff really got me interested in
That's
geography.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, no, love it.
So how's your dad doing sobriety wise? Does he do 12-step?
He does. So
he goes to AA now?
Yeah,
Okay.
he goes to AA. He just hit a year as well. You know, we were like 20-something days apart.
Have you given each other tokens?
So they came and visited me before we both hit a year. But what happened was my counselor from SCRC, he gave me a year at a meeting, and my mom sent him a token from her and like a card or anything. So like they gave me a token, but they couldn't be here because like work and stuff.
One day you guys should give each other like your 2 year, your 3 year, whatever.
My
It's
mom
very cool.
did give my mom went to an open meeting and gave my dad his year for sobriety. Yeah, super sweet. Apparently, like they were like, yeah, people were crying. It was super sweet. I was like, oh, that's cute. But yeah, eventually I do want to do that. And it's just like I always say, like that's one of the reasons I know that there's a higher power looking out for me. Like there's no coincidence that me and my dad are that close in sobriety days.
Totally.
You know, everything had to line up perfectly, you know. He was only home from rehab for 2 days when like, you know, we had an intervention. Like it all just kind of worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's no coincidence.
So as such a young guy, did you struggle with the higher power concept initially or no?
You know, I always say, you know, my higher power, it's constantly evolving. I think the first time I had a concept of God, because I grew up in the Bible Belt, you know, like we never really went to church. My dad got kicked out of like 15 different Catholic schools as a kid, you know, so like my mom, you know, would go to church as a kid, but they never like pushed a religion on us. We never really went to church as a family. But I remember, you know, my mom was an Al-Anon, so she had a higher power at this point. When I was in rehab, they were trying to kick me out because they were like, hey, your tests are coming positive for fentanyl with the, you know, the fucking peak up. And so I was like, that's not right. And they were trying
here or in Tennessee?
It was in Tennessee.
Okay.
So I was like, that's not right. And they're like, no, like we'll send your test to the lab, blah, blah, blah. They were like, if it comes back positive, like we're going to kick you out. And like I was freaking out. I called my mom on the rehab phone. I was like, they're trying to kick me out. Like I haven't done anything. Did somebody lace me? Like I was like, what the happened? She was like, God's got you. Like she was like, just believe in God and like everything's going to be okay. And so the lab results come back and they're like, okay, your fentanyl levels, it's still in your system. Your levels have dropped. They were like, we've never had somebody with this much in their system is what they said. They're like, this is new. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but they were like, but you tested positive for something else. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, you tested positive for oxycodone on the lab. They're trying to kick me out again. And my therapist was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, and he starts like looking at the lab results, and an hour later he comes and gets me and he's like, hey, like he was like, it was the Suboxone, like they were misreading the metabolites. And I was like, how do you even do that? Like this is your job.
That's, you know? So annoying.
But yeah, that was my first really concept of a God, because I was like, when my mom told me that,
you felt like, comfort in that moment.
I was like, you know, I know I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, God's got me, you know, like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So that was my first concept. Like I said, it's always changing. Right now, if I could put my higher power into words, it would be just not having control, you know, because we love to control everything. With the relationship that I was in, you know, with a lot of things, like I felt like I was trying to control things again, you know, and now like I find relief knowing that I don't have control. I only control like in like page 417, me and my attitudes. And so that's my higher power right now, is knowing that I'm only in control of me and my attitudes. You know, my higher power has the rest. You know? And that's what it is for me.
Well, that's so cool. I love that.
You know, and it's helped a lot. You know, it gives me something to pray to. It gives me something to trust. You know, a year in sobriety, you know, I've been given a lot of gifts. I'll say that I was given a lot of gifts in life already. You know, as a kid, I had everything that I ever could have wanted. God gave me that. I chose to throw it away. Now that God's giving me these things back, I'm choosing to keep them this time. You know, and so like I couldn't have had, the promises definitely came to fruition for me in this past year. Like, you know, I'm going back to school. I have a good job. You know, I'm finally in 2 weeks moving out of sober living for the first time.
I was going to ask you that if you're still in sober living or not. Okay,
yeah,
so you chose to stay for over a year. I did too this time. Yeah,
so I graduated my IOP program, SCRC, and then I moved into another sober living, and like I've been there since like September of 2023, and now in 2 weeks finally, like, you know, I was like, I always said once I have a year sobriety, like I want to get my own place, blah blah blah. So now I'm moving into a place with another person, with Sam. So
Sam?
Sam? Yeah, Sam.
Cool.
Yeah. So he'll be my roommate. I'm moving into he had a roommate just move out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'll be moving there in 2 weeks. So like I'm so excited. I ordered my bed and everything.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
That's so cool. He actually texted me today. I need to call him back.
So I'm really excited that I get to live with somebody that like I can trust. That's also in recovery.
You can totally trust him. That is a good guy.
Yeah, and I was looking at other places for a long time, and like, you know, when I was looking for places, like he just happened to like contact me. It was like, hey, are you looking for like to move out of sober living? And it just kind of lined up perfectly. And
that's
so,
awesome.
Like, yeah, I was like, thank you, God. You know,
yeah,
like,
totally.
Yeah, so super excited. Ordered my bed and stuff. You know,
so yeah,
super
cool.
excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if someone is listening and they're 21 and they're strung out on fentanyl, and they're terrified to kick, and they're terrified to stop using, what would you say?
And, you know, I like that you asked this because I've had friends, you know, that have come to me my same age that are in the same situation. I always tell them, like, listen, dude, you know, you saw how bad I was. You know, you heard how bad I was. You know, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I know that's kind of cliche, but it's like, dude, and like in terms of kicking, like, yeah, it's going to fucking suck. You know, it was fucking horrible, but you never have to feel that bad again. You know, you only have to do it once. And I think there are people that, you know, do like medical detox where they knock you out and you go through it. Like, I feel like you have to feel that pain.
Oh, you do? Controversial opinion.
Yeah.
If I could knock myself out and kick, I would.
Exactly. But like,
you
I
wouldn't?
feel like, I mean, I would, but I of course I would. Like, kicking sucks, but
you think it's valuable.
I think that for me, I'm glad that I had to kick because it was like, you know, because I kicked before, but this time it was way worse. I was in like a detox, you know, I couldn't do other drugs. So it's like I had to feel that pain to know that I never want to do it again. You know? So like if you're, you know, if you're my age, like it's possible, and like to get sober this young is a blessing because you know, I have my whole life ahead of me. You know, I have time to actually continue to do what I want. You know, I'm learning, and I feel so blessed that I'm learning to be an adult at this age, you know, and I have a program that's helping me continue and maintain sobriety, but also teaching me, you know, how to be an adult and like how to navigate life. So
totally. I always say that it's a design for living, not just for not using.
Yeah. And I always, you know, when I lead a meeting, I tell the story where I know that, you know, the 12 steps are a design for living, and that, you know, substance use was merely a symptom of my spiritual defect. And I always say, because I remember one day back in Tennessee, you know, I was fighting with my girlfriend and I lit her porch on fire. So what happened was I hadn't gotten high this day, right? I hadn't gotten high yet. I was pissed at her. I had like a roadside flare in my car or something, and I fucking chucked it at her. I was just going to be like, yeah, fuck you, but like it lit her porch on fire. And I remember like I hadn't gotten high that day, so I did this crazy thing, and then I get loaded and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, you know. And so I'm like, listen, like, so I always use that example. I'm like, listen, I had this spiritual defect and I was using the drugs to cover that up. Eventually the drugs became part of the defect, you know, so it was just a symptom. So I always use that example because I think it's a perfect example.
It totally
is.
As soon as I got high, I'm like, I shouldn't have done that.
And yeah, I was completely sober and I made this stupid decision. And still in sobriety, like, yeah, I'm completely sober, like, and I make bad decisions sometimes.
I do too. And I've 9 years. So.
Yeah, and it's like, that's what this program's for. You know, like I said, we have a step for fucking up. So
Right.
And that,
Do you feel like you're missing out on alcohol?
I don't think so. You know, what I always say is like I retired young. You know, I think that I put my time in, like I did everything that I could have done. I got in trouble. I've done some horrible shit.
It's also not that fun.
It's not that fun.
Doing shots at bars and stuff. It's not that fun.
I don't think alcohol was. I barely drink.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
it's not that fun.
You know, hard drugs for me only. You know, and so it was. You know, I don't think I'm missing out on everything or on anything. You know, I think now I'm able to value life this much more, and I have time to actually do things that are gonna be valuable to my life. You know, like I get to travel now. I get to do things that are like, the world is so much more than drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was playing video games with friends, like online, and we were talking, we were like, yeah, like the guy that we were playing against could hear us in the background. He was like, yeah, give me another line, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, guys, remember, he was like, I know you're young, but he was like, life is so much more than drugs and alcohol. And it was this, I don't know who this guy was, some random dude on the internet. And I always think back to that, I was like, he was right. Like, this guy's like, he must have known something, you know.
Oh no,
it's so funny.
That's actually kind of cute.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
Well, I know you don't have. Do you do like a social media presence? Do you want to say where you are if anybody wants to connect with you, or you don't have to? Some of my people are.
Yeah, of course.
Influencers.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. What is my tag? It's at Sebi.
It's Sebi something.
Yeah, at
How do we pronounce your last name, by the way?
Guillaume.
Guillaume. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's French, so it's at
Sebastian Guillaume.
Yeah, it's French. So it's what's funny is my great grandfather was an orphan in France. He's Spanish, but like they gave him a French last name. It's not supposed to have a T at the end. Yeah, yeah. It's not. It's like so the two.
Oh yeah, because you're not French.
Yeah,
but that's a super French name.
Yeah, Puerto
so
Rican
it's Sebi.Guillaume.
Yeah, so
but I'll add it in the notes if anybody wants to connect and say hi to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a complicated last name. Yeah,
it's nice. So I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, dude, I'm so glad that you did this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun, dude. I love this studio.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, it is fun.
I know. Now I just need to get, so anybody you can think of, I want to try to get as many in-person people as possible. Yeah. Obviously, I'm going to keep doing Zoom for some people. Yeah. But I really want to get I want to interview Kevin. Yeah. Because Sam did so well. I would have loved to have done it in person. And so anybody you can think of too.
Yeah, that's why, I'm glad you have this platform, especially in this area. Like this is one of the greatest, areas for recovery.
Totally.
People would always say they're like, oh, you're getting sober, like right on the border. I was like, listen, dude, I was like, if there's more drugs, there's more recovery.
Yes.
So like I think there's so many people in our community that would be great on this show,
And you were my inaugural guest.
Yeah, I know.
You were the first person in the studio.
I know. I was so nervous. I was like, am I going to look good in this light?
So I have my hair in front on purpose because I keep doing video podcasts lately. Yeah. And I have this fat neck.
No, you don't. Oh my God.
Yes, I do. And so everybody that's making reels for me, oh, Bubba.
He's so sweet.
Did you get some of the Benadryl that I tried to lace you with?
It's starting to keep
I know, I think